I wouldn't say that Banff is empty in late October and November, but it definitely feels like it compared to July and August. Parking is easier, lines are shorter, and the pace slows right down. It's a different rhythm as some summer activities are wrapped up for winter, ski season hasn't fully kicked in yet, and conditions change fast. If you're up for flexible plans, warm layers with that same stunning mountain scenery, then shoulder season can be wonderful, and I'll walk you through what you need to know. Before we dive into what you need to know about visiting Banff in shoulder season, a quick note about my Banff Travel Consultations. You can book a 1 hour session with me to walk through your trip and leave with a personalized, up to date plan that will include what's actually open for your dates, flexible options for each day, and practical tips for weather, roads, and gear. This is especially helpful in October and November when it's hardest to tell what's truly doable. Here's a review I recently received from one of my Banff Travel Consultation clients. I followed your Facebook group and could see how helpful and knowledgeable you were. I was totally confused with the pre-booking of certain lakes and shuttle buses, so I booked a consultation with you. I would recommend a Zoom call with you. Everything worked out perfect for us. You can find a link to booking a Banff Travel Consultation with me in the show notes. Now let's get into shoulder season in Banff. Shoulder season really refers to this in-between time when we're transitioning from peak summer season to peak winter season, or vice versa. While September and early October remain busy, you'll find that most things are still open. So shoulder season really refers to after mid-October and into about mid-December, when things get much quieter. So while I refer to this episode as Banff in November, it does lump in those last couple of weeks in October and early December as well. Now, aside from being quieter at this time, roads that enter avalanche terrain will be closed, water activities have ended, driving conditions change, and yet it's not fully winter. We may not have enough snow for winter activities like dog sledding or skiing. So shoulder season definitely comes with some trade-offs, but there is plenty to enjoy in Banff and the surrounding area in shoulder season. But keep in mind that every year also looks different. Some years we get a lot of snow early on, allowing us to start winter activities early, and other years we're waiting until late December. Of course, late October and November aren't everyone's cup of tea for visiting Banff. But if you're really looking for a quieter experience in the mountains and don't mind the colder weather, this might just be your perfect time, especially when it means not needing to worry about parking issues and maybe even more reasonable prices for accommodations. So let's tackle the reality check first, because I don't want you arriving in late October or November expecting everything to be open like it was in July. Moraine Lake Road closes the day after Canadian Thanksgiving, which is the second Monday in October. This means that the shuttles to Moraine Lake stop operating as well, so you will not be able to visit Moraine Lake. Now, the shuttles to Lake Louise also stop operating, but so does the paid parking. It is no longer in effect. The tea houses at Lake Louise are also closed by mid-October. You are still able to hike the trails, but be aware that the trails to the tea houses do pass through avalanche terrain, so you need to know what you're getting yourself into and be prepared. It's really your responsibility to do your research on each trail you are considering hiking and to ensure you aren't entering avalanche terrain, and to know if there's any risks of any avalanche during your visit. Speaking of roads, the road to Takaka Falls in Yoho National Park will also close mid-October as it passes through avalanche terrain. And a section of the Lake Minnewanka Loop will close in November. That's more related to wildlife than it is avalanche terrain. For transportation, Rome Transit, the public bus system here, has already undergone major schedule changes. Many routes will have changed in late September and others will go to a winter schedule by mid-October. Some routes go to weekends and holidays only, like Route 9 to Johnston Canyon, and others like Route 6 to Minnewanka will be done entirely for the season. As I mentioned, any water activities will be done by mid-October or earlier. This includes canoeing on the lakes and boat cruises. The Banff Gondola, though, does run year-round, but they do always have a closure for maintenance in November, so definitely check their website before you go. Now, I get it. This might all sound pretty negative, and you might be wondering what's left, but here's why I don't see this as all negative. Yes, fewer open attractions, but that also means fewer crowds, and there are plenty of places to still explore. But before we get into the fun stuff of what there is to do, I want to chat a little bit about winter driving. I know many people who visit at this time aren't used to driving on snow and ice, and on top of that, there are winter driving requirements that can affect where you can actually go. So, starting November 1st, if you want to drive the Icefields Parkway, so Highway 93 North from Lake Louise to Jasper, you need tires that either have the snowflake symbol, so proper winter tires, or the M+S, which stands for mud and snow, marking on the tires. This requirement actually runs until April 1st. If you're planning to visit Yoho or Kootenay National Parks, so places like Emerald Lake or Marble Canyon, British Columbia's winter tire requirements start October 1st. You'll need tires again with either that snowflake symbol or the M+S markings on the tires. As we get into November, you will very likely encounter some winter driving conditions. It's important that you check the forecast and the road conditions before heading out. I always recommend having some flexibility in your plans, especially on the day that you need to get back to the airport. If there's a storm in the forecast, maybe you want to consider going back the night before. If you aren't comfortable driving in winter conditions, then you can always go car-free. While this is a little bit more complicated at this time of year, it's still possible depending on your plans. As we get further into winter, I always get the question about rental cars with proper winter tires. And the answer is that yes, it is possible. So some rental companies will charge an extra $20 to $25 per day for actual winter tires. But this is important. Make sure you're actually getting those true winter tires. So those will have the snowflake symbol on them. Many rentals will already come with the all seasons M+S, so mud plus snow tires, which meet the legal requirements, but aren't necessarily the same as dedicated winter tires. I'm going to leave some resources on winter driving and the difference between these two tires in the show notes. All right, now it's time. Let's talk about what you can actually do during this shoulder season that October and November bring. And it's more than you might think, actually. So winter hiking is the perfect way to get outside. There are plenty of gorgeous, easy winter trails that are perfect when avalanche danger makes the high alpine routes off limits. Some of my favorites include Tunnel Mountain. It's fantastic year-round and gives you incredible views over the Bow Valley. In the winter, you might need microspikes, but it's totally doable. Johnston Canyon to the lower falls is spectacular, with ice formation starting to build. The Upper Falls Trail can get icy, but the Lower Falls Walk is usually pretty manageable with proper footwear. Again, it's very likely that you're going to want to bring micro spikes, which I'll talk about more later, but it will just save you from slipping and sliding on the trail the whole time. Along the Lake Minnewanka Scenic Loop, you can enjoy a short hike around Johnson Lake or the Lake Minnewanka shoreline. Both are peaceful and beautiful. This is really a great time to do those short hikes and then find other activities to warm up afterwards. As we get further into November, if it's cold enough, it's possible that some of the lakes will freeze enough for skating. This is a pretty incredible time to be here when the lakes are frozen but not yet covered in snow. Now here's where I need to give you more safety information. Parks Canada does not monitor the ice thickness, so you again need to be responsible for your own safety and ensure that it is thick enough for skating on. Don't just follow what's going on social media. Every year it seems that people are on the ice when it's still very thin and break through into icy cold water, which is extremely dangerous. Now I know that many people have skating on Lake Louise on their bucket list, so just know that that doesn't typically freeze over enough until around mid-December. I'm going to leave some more resources on winter skating and safety in the show notes. And remember that you are responsible for your own safety and for measuring the ice thickness. It is not being monitored. So if you're unsure, don't go on the ice. Again, during this time, wildlife viewing is still really nice. The elk are still around town. While less likely that you're going to see a bear because most of them are going to be heading closer to their dens, know that some of the big grizzlies can still be around, especially if the temperatures are mild, so you should still carry bear spray on your hikes. Getting out for some photography in November is a great time. The contrast between the mountains and the evergreens and the ice forming on the lakes, those crisp blue sky days, it's a completely different Banff than the summer visitors see. Plus, it's so much easier to catch a sunrise or a sunset. And with some luck, you may even see the northern lights, which of course has no guarantee, but it's always worth checking the forecast for that. Again, the Banff Gondola is still up and running except for a few days when they do their maintenance, but it offers incredible winter views. Just remember to dress warm because it's definitely chilly up there. Of course, scenic drives, which I've mentioned several of in the past few episodes, paired with a short hike or a snowshoe, if we have enough snow, are a great way to spend the day. As an example, you could enjoy a scenic drive along the Bow Valley Parkway, stopping at all the scenic viewpoints, and do that short hike at Johnston Canyon. Continue all the way to Lake Louise, have a nice lunch, and then you can even make a stop at Marble Canyon on your way back to Banff. Now, both the town of Banff and the town of Canmore have some really scenic walks that are ideal for a morning or afternoon around town, and I'll link to those posts I have on both of those in the show notes. As the weather gets colder and the days get shorter, it's nice to plan shorter hikes and a mix of indoor and outdoor activities. Coffee shops, long lunches with a view, and your hotel hot tub are the perfect addition to your itinerary. Now, unfortunately, for those of you traveling here in 2025, the Banff Hot Springs is closed for maintenance until December. Now, there are plenty more things to do around Banff in October and November. It really just depends on what Mother Nature brings us for weather and for snow. You'll also find that around mid-November, Christmas activities will start up around Banff. The Christmas market will be happening on the weekends from around mid-November, and the Banff Mountain Film Festival usually happens early November. If you're looking for some indoor activities, then I'd recommend something like an afternoon tea at one of the Fairmont hotels, or visiting the Cave and Basin or other Banff museums, or if it's in the budget, a once-in-a-lifetime experience like a helicopter tour. So now that you have an idea of what to do, let's talk about what you're actually facing weather-wise, because November in the Canadian Rockies is no joke. November temperatures typically range from highs around -2 to 3 degrees Celsius, so that's about 28 to 37 degrees Fahrenheit, down to nighttime lows that can hit -10 to -15 Celsius, so 5 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's just the average. It can get much colder. However, it can also be much warmer, so it's really hard to predict. Snow is not just possible, it should be expected. November usually brings Banff's first significant snowfalls, and once it's on the ground, it tends to stay. Now, here's what should be on your radar for packing. This is assuming we have a November that feels like winter. So it can be warmer, but it never hurts to be prepared. If it's going to be cold, winter boots will be essential. Not just waterproof hiking boots. I'm talking insulated, warm winter boots with some decent traction. As I mentioned, micro spikes are also a great idea for icy trails. If you don't own your own micro spikes, you can easily rent them in the towns. Micro spikes are a much toned down version of ice crampons for your boots. So the stretchy section goes over top of your boot, and the bottom is a mix of chains and some small dull spikes that allow you to more easily walk over ice without slipping. Now, I always mention layers, but you're going to want a little bit more serious layers this time. So think about base layers, maybe a merino wool, some insulating layers, and a proper winter coat. That light fall jacket just isn't going to cut it anymore. Don't forget those winter accessories like a warm hat, insulated gloves, some warm socks. Trust me, your extremities will thank you. And don't forget the sunglasses. That snow can be blinding on a crisp, clear day. If you're going to be doing any long road trips, an emergency car kit is essential with some blankets, some extra food, water, flashlight. November mountain weather can change fast. Now, even if the day looks nice, I recommend packing your layers. At a minimum, have them in your car. It can change quickly. Even in late September, I went on a hike where I threw in my shell jacket, but had planned to leave it in the car. The skies looked great, and I really didn't think I would need it. But I forgot to take it out of my pack. So sure enough, once we were out in the open on our hike, the wind was howling and freezing. Then the clouds blew in and we even had snow. Now I already had a base layer and a fleece on, but I was so glad that I had my shell jacket for that wind, and I even put on my toucan gloves. So it was good to have them in the pack. Now, here are my insider tips for absolutely loving your late October or November Banff visit. Embrace the quiet. This is when you get Banff almost to yourself. Savor those moments of solitude at iconic spots. Be flexible. Weather can change plans quickly. Have indoor activities ready. Even the Banff Center often has performances. The museums are open, and there are some really great spas for warming up. Feel free to start later in the day with shorter daylight hours and cold mornings. There's no need to be out at sunrise unless you're chasing that perfect photography shot. Don't forget to check conditions. Trail conditions, road conditions, and closures can change daily. I'll include some links where you can check that in the show notes. And consider staying in town. Banff Townsite has more services and amenities open year-round compared to some of the more remote areas. Of course, I'll include my full guide to November in the show notes, where I cover all of this in even more detail. If this episode helped you think through whether shoulder season might be right for your Banff adventure, I'd be so grateful if you left a review of the podcast. It truly helps other travelers discover the show when they're planning their own mountain adventures. Thanks for listening to the Banff Travel Podcast. If you have questions about visiting Banff in late October or November, or really any other month, head to banfftravelplanning.com/podcast and send them my way. I love hearing from listeners and answering your questions. Until next time, embrace the adventure of shoulder season in Banff, pack those warm layers, and I'll see you out on the trails.